I walked into my local warehouse last Tuesday, just like I do every week. I noticed something that most people just walked right past without a second thought. The shelves looked full, but the prices on the tags had that subtle change that tells you something is about to happen. I've been watching these trends for years, and I can tell you that most people have no idea what is coming for their grocery bill. There is a quiet shift happening in the supply chain that the big media outlets aren't covering. They want you to keep spending like everything is normal while the smart money is moving toward preparation. I am talking about a specific kind of stocking up that isn't about panic. It is about being the person who is ahead of the curve. It is about being part of that inner circle that knows which items are going to become luxury goods by this time next year. If you care about your budget and you want to feel empowered instead of anxious, you need to pay attention to these 10 specific items. I found one item in particular that surprised even me. You won't believe what I discovered about item number 7 and why it is the ultimate hedge against what is coming. Before we dive into the list, I want to ask you to join our community. Subscribe to the channel so you can stay informed while everyone else is playing catch-up. We look at the real-world data that corporations don't want to discuss openly. I'm seeing things change in real time, and I want you to be ready for it. Let's look at what you need to be putting in your cart today so you aren't paying double tomorrow. Item number 1, extra virgin olive oil. The era of cheap, high-quality olive oil is officially coming to a close. I noticed this myself when I saw the liter price jump twice in a single month at my local warehouse. This isn't just a random spike because of a shipping delay. The real data shows that the Mediterranean region has faced back-to-back years of extreme climate shifts that have devastated the olive groves. Spain produces nearly half of the world's supply, and their harvests have been at historic lows. This creates a massive hole in the global market that other regions simply cannot fill. I looked this up myself because I couldn't understand why the shelves were looking so thin. When I checked the trade reports for 2026, I saw that prices are projected to rise another 30% before the year is out. I spoke to a distributor who works with major retailers, and he told me that the quality of what is left is also dropping. Most people don't realize that a lot of the cheaper oils are being blended with seed oils just to keep the price down. If you want the pure stuff, you have to act now while the warehouse still has the high-quality Kirkland Signature bottles in stock. I started buying 2 bottles every trip just to build a small reserve in my pantry. You should aim to have at least a 6-month supply of olive oil stored in a cool, dark place. Do not leave it in the light or it will go rancid before you can use it. It is better to have it now than to be forced to buy low-quality blends later. This is about protecting your health and your food budget. You don't want to be caught off guard when the price tag hits $40 for a single bottle. Item number 2, canned wild sockeye salmon. Protein costs are the biggest threat to a household budget right now. I was walking through the canned goods aisle and noticed that the inventory of wild-caught salmon was lower than usual. This is a red flag that most shoppers ignore until the shelf is completely empty. The industry reports are showing that fishing quotas are being slashed to protect dwindling populations in the Pacific. At the same time, the cost of processing and canning has gone up because of labor shortages at the docks. This is a classic supply and demand squeeze that is only going to get tighter as we move through 2026. When I checked the pricing history for this item over the last 3 years, I saw a steady climb that is starting to accelerate. I noticed this myself when I tried to find a specific brand and it was replaced by a more expensive corporate label. The insider logic here is that canned protein is the first thing people grab when the economy feels shaky. I spoke to someone who works in food logistics, and they mentioned that warehouse clubs are struggling to secure long-term contracts for wild salmon. They are moving toward farmed fish because it's cheaper to produce even though the quality isn't the same. I want the nutrients and the shelf life of the wild-caught variety. You should look for the packs of 6 or 8 cans and grab as many as your budget allows today. Canned salmon has a shelf life of years if stored correctly, and it provides a high density of nutrition. It is one of the smartest ways to lock in your protein costs for the future. Knowing you have a stock of high-quality protein gives you a sense of security that money in the bank can't provide. You are literally saving your future self from higher prices and lower quality options. Item number 3, pure maple syrup. Pure maple syrup is moving from a pantry staple to a luxury item right before our eyes. I noticed this myself when the price of the large jugs at the warehouse went up by $5 overnight. Most people think syrup is just sugar, but it is a complex agricultural product that is highly sensitive to the weather. The source of the problem is the shrinking window for the sap to flow in the Northeast and Canada. Global reports show that the strategic maple syrup reserve in Quebec is at its lowest point in decades. This isn't something that can be fixed by just planting more trees because they take 30 years to mature. I checked the wholesale market data last month, and the numbers are startling. The big commercial buyers are locking in supplies years in advance, which leaves less for the retail consumer. I saw a post from a small producer who said they are seeing more buyers coming directly to the farms because the grocery stores can't keep it in stock. I personally use maple syrup as my primary sweetener, because I distrust the highly processed sugars and corn syrups that corporations push. When I realized that the price was going to keep climbing, I decided to dedicate a shelf in my basement just for these jugs. They have a nearly indefinite shelf life if they are unopened. You should buy the glass bottles or the heavy plastic jugs and keep them in a cool spot. Once you open them, they must be refrigerated, so keep that in mind for your storage space. This is a simple way to keep a bit of real food in your diet without breaking the bank later. It feels good to know that your family will still have access to natural sweeteners, while others are forced to use chemical alternatives. This is a small victory for your pantry and your peace of mind. Item number 4. Long grain. Basmati rice is the foundation of the world's diet, and the market for it is becoming increasingly volatile. I noticed this myself when the 20-pound bags started disappearing from the floor and being replaced by smaller 10-pound bags for nearly the same price. This is a quiet way for companies to raise prices without you noticing the change on the tag. The reality is that major exporters like India have been placing bans on rice exports to keep their own domestic prices low. This leaves the rest of the world fighting over a smaller and smaller piece of the pie. When I looked into the global trade data, I saw that rice stocks in the West are at a 5-year low. I spoke to a shop owner who specializes in bulk grains, and he told me that his costs have doubled in the last 18 months. He said that the big warehouse clubs have the best prices right now because they have the most leverage with suppliers. However, even that leverage has a limit when the physical product isn't there to buy. I noticed that the quality of some rice brands is also changing with more broken grains in the bag than there used to be. This tells me that the suppliers are scraping the bottom of the bins to meet their contracts. I decided to buy the high-quality basmati in bulk now while the price is still manageable. You should buy the large burlap sacks and then transfer the rice into food-grade buckets with gamma lids. This protects the rice from pests and moisture and allows it to stay fresh for up to 20 years. It is the ultimate insurance policy for your kitchen. Being ahead of the curve means you don't have to worry when the news starts reporting on grain shortages. You will already have what you need sitting in your pantry. Item number 5. Whole bean coffee. Coffee is something many of us consider a necessity, but the insider view of the coffee market is looking very grim. I noticed this myself when the variety of whole bean options at the warehouse started to shrink. They are focusing on the most expensive blends and letting the mid-tier options fade away. The industry data shows that coffee rust and changing weather patterns are destroying crops in South America and Southeast Asia. At the same time, the demand in emerging markets is skyrocketing. This creates a perfect storm where the supply is dropping just as everyone wants more of it. I checked the commodity prices last week, and coffee is trading at a premium that we haven't seen in a long time. I spoke to a local roaster who told me that his green bean costs are up 40%. He expects that to translate to the retail shelf within the next 3 to 4 months. I've always bought the large bags of whole beans because they stay fresh much longer than pre-ground coffee. I noticed that if I vacuum seal the bags and keep them in a dark cabinet, they stay perfect for a long time. I've started buying an extra bag every time I go to Costco just to stay ahead of the next price hike. You should focus on buying the whole bean variety and investing in a decent grinder. This allows you to store the coffee for longer periods without losing the flavor or the caffeine kick. It is a much better value than buying the expensive pods that the corporations want you to use. You don't want to wake up one morning and realize you can't afford your morning routine. Taking action today ensures that your mornings stay exactly how you like them. Item number 6. Real vanilla extract. Vanilla is one of those items that people don't think about until they go to bake a cake and realize the price has tripled. I noticed this myself a few years ago during the last spike, and it is happening again right now. The warehouse prices for the large bottles of Kirkland vanilla are still the best in the market, but the inventory is becoming spotty. The source of the problem is that the majority of the world's vanilla comes from Madagascar, which is prone to severe weather events. When a single storm hits that island, it can wipe out the global supply for years. Retailers are already seeing the wholesale prices climb in anticipation of a short harvest. I looked into the production process, and it takes years for a vanilla vine to produce beans. This isn't something that can be ramped up quickly to meet a shortage. I noticed that many pure vanilla extracts on the market are actually being diluted or using synthetic vanillin to save money. I spoke to a professional baker who told me she is buying 5 gallons of extract at a time just to lock in her costs. She said the price is the most volatile ingredient in her entire kitchen. I don't need 5 gallons, but I do make sure I have 3 of the large warehouse bottles in my back stock at all times. You should check the label to ensure you are getting pure vanilla extract and not vanilla flavoring. The real stuff will last forever because of the alcohol content, so there is no risk of it going bad. It is a safe and smart place to park some of your grocery budget. It's about knowing you have the quality ingredients you need to take care of your family. You are making a smart decision that saves you from corporate price gouging in the future. Item number 7, raw, local, or organic honey. This is the item that I really want you to pay attention to because it is a true miracle of nature that is under threat. I noticed this myself when I saw the honey labels in most grocery stores were actually honey blends containing corn syrup. The Warehouse Club is one of the last places where you can get a large quantity of real honey for a fair price. The real data on bee populations is concerning, and it directly impacts the price of honey. Colony collapse disorder and the loss of habitat mean that real honey is becoming harder and harder to produce. Most of the honey sold in big box stores is ultra-filtered and heated, which destroys all the beneficial enzymes. I did some digging and found that a large portion of the honey imported into the United States is actually fraudulent. It is often watered down with rice syrup to make it cheaper for the corporations to sell. I saw this myself when I tested a cheap brand, and it didn't have the same consistency or taste as the real stuff. I spoke to a beekeeper at a local market, and he said he can't even produce enough to meet the demand from his regular customers. He told me that the Warehouse Club honey is often a better bet than the supermarket stuff if you look for the organic raw labels. Honey never spoils, and it has been found in Egyptian tombs still edible after thousands of years. You should stock up on the largest jars of raw honey you can find at the warehouse. Use it for sweetening tea or as a natural remedy for a sore throat. It is a store of value that literally lasts forever and will only get more expensive as the bee populations struggle. This is the ultimate insider secret for a long-term pantry. Knowing you have a supply of liquid gold that never goes bad gives you a massive advantage in any situation. Item number 8, frozen organic berries. Frozen food is often overlooked in stocking up conversations because of the reliance on electricity. However, for the budget-conscious shopper, frozen berries are a critical item to watch in 2026. I noticed this myself when the price of a 3-pound bag of organic blueberries jumped by $4 in a single season. The cost of energy is the main driver here because it is expensive to keep these items at sub-zero temperatures during transport. Industry reports show that cold storage facilities are raising their rates to cover their own rising utility bills. This cost is being passed directly to you at the checkout line. I checked the harvest data for berries and found that labor costs for picking fruit have risen sharply. I noticed that the warehouse is starting to carry more berry blends, which often contain more of the cheaper fruits like grapes or melon pieces. Finding the pure organic bags of blueberries or raspberries is becoming a challenge. I spoke to a warehouse manager who mentioned that the frozen section is one of the most expensive parts of the store to maintain. He said that if energy prices continue to fluctuate, they might reduce the variety of frozen goods they carry. I decided to make sure my deep freezer was full of these nutrient-dense fruits, while the selection is still good. You should invest in a small chest freezer if you don't already have one. It allows you to buy these bulk bags when they go on sale and keep them for up to a year. It is a much smarter way to eat healthy without paying the fresh premium at the grocery store. You don't want to be in a position where you have to choose between your health and your budget. This is about making sure you can afford the best food for your family, no matter what happens to energy prices. Item number 9, unbleached all-purpose flour. Flour is the most basic of all pantry staples, and it is the one item you should never run out of. I noticed this myself when the warehouse started limiting how many bags of the high-quality unbleached flour a single customer could buy. This is a quiet sign that the supply chain is under stress behind the scenes. The reality is that wheat quality has been declining due to soil depletion and the overuse of chemical fertilizers. The source of the highest quality wheat is shifting, and the insider logic is that the best grain is being exported to countries willing to pay a premium. This leaves the domestic market with lower-grade flour that is often heavily bleached and processed. I looked into the pricing of bulk grain and saw that the farm-to-table movement is actually making it harder for big retailers to secure the best harvests. I saw a report that said the 2026 wheat crop was smaller than expected in the Midwest. I noticed that the price of bread in the bakery section has been rising faster than almost any other item. I spoke to a friend who does a lot of home baking, and she told me she noticed a difference in how her bread rises. She thinks the protein content in the standard flour is becoming inconsistent. I started buying the 25-pound bags of organic unbleached flour because it gives me a consistent result and a better price. You should store your flour in airtight containers, and if you have the space, you can even put it in the freezer for a few days to kill any potential pests. Flour is the base for so many meals, and having 100 pounds on hand is a very small investment for a lot of security. It feels good to know that no matter what the price of a loaf of bread becomes, you can make your own. This is about being self-reliant and staying ahead of the corporate food system. Item number 10. Bulk nuts, almonds and walnuts. Nuts are a powerhouse of healthy fats and protein, but they are becoming increasingly expensive to produce. I noticed this myself when the value bags at the warehouse started getting smaller while the price stayed the same. This shrinkflation is a way for companies to hide the rising costs of water and land. The data on California's water usage is the key to understanding why nut prices are going to explode. Most of the world's almonds and walnuts come from this one region, and the water rights are becoming a massive political and economic battle. I looked this up and found that many farmers are actually tearing out their orchards because they can't afford the water to keep the trees alive. I spoke to an agriculture analyst who said that the golden age of cheap nuts is over. He told me that in 5 years, almonds will be considered a luxury item like caviar. I noticed that the Warehouse Club still has decent pricing on their large bags of halves and pieces, but the whole nuts are already becoming pricey. I've always kept a few bags of walnuts and almonds in my freezer to prevent the oils from going rancid. This is a great insider tip because it extends the shelf life from a few months to over a year. I've started buying an extra bag every month to build up a significant supply. You should look for the bags that are plain and unsalted because they are the most versatile for cooking and snacking. Store them in the back of your freezer where the temperature is most stable. This is a high-value item that will only get more expensive as water becomes more scarce. You are protecting your budget by recognizing these trends before the general public does. It's a satisfying feeling to know you have these high-quality foods secured for the long term. When you look at these 10 items as a whole, you start to see a very clear pattern. The global food system is becoming more fragile, and the items that require the most real resources like water and stable weather are the first to rise in price. The corporations know this, and they are already adjusting their packaging and their quality to protect their profit margins. By following this list and stocking up now, you are effectively opting out of that system. You are taking control of your own food security and your own budget. This isn't about being scared of the future. It is about being smart and being prepared for a world where things cost more and quality is harder to find. Most people are going to wait until they see the empty shelves or the 40% price hike before they act. By then, it will be too late to get the value that is available to you today. You are part of the inner circle now because you understand the logic behind the changes you see in the store. I want to thank you for spending this time with me and for being proactive about your family's future. If you found this information helpful, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a like. It helps us keep providing these insider looks at the retail world that you won't find on the nightly news. Leave a comment below and let me know which of these items you have already noticed changing at your local Costco or Warehouse Club. I love hearing your personal stories and observations from the field. It helps all of us stay ahead of the curve. Stay tuned for our next video where we will look at the specific household items that are about to see a major supply shift. Until then, keep your eyes open and stay informed. You've got this, and I'll see you in the next one.